Dear listeners, we're back with a new story. Get ready for cheating, revenge, and wild relationship drama. I used to think our life was perfect. Every morning, I'd wake up to the sound of Tara's laughter echoing through the kitchen as she prepared breakfast. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the sweet scent of pancakes filled our modest home, creating an atmosphere that felt warm and inviting. Yet, beneath that facade of domestic bliss, I felt a gnawing sense of unease that I couldn't quite place. It all began with those late nights at work. "Ethan, I really need to finish this project," she'd say, her voice soft yet resolute. I would nod, understanding but deep down feeling the creeping shadow of insecurity. I dismissed my concerns, convincing myself that Tara was just dedicated to her job as an event planner. One evening, I returned home early, hoping to surprise her with dinner. I stepped into the living room, the faint glow of her phone screen catching my eye on the coffee table. My heart raced as I noticed it was unlocked, a text message blinking from an unknown number. I hesitated, glancing at the kitchen to ensure she wasn't nearby. The urge to look was overwhelming. "Come on, Ethan," I muttered under my breath. Just one peek. As I reached for the phone, I felt like a thief in my own home. When I opened the messaging app, my breath hitched in my throat. The screen revealed a string of messages between Tara and someone named Jake. My hands trembled as I read through the exchanges, each word slicing deeper into my heart. "I can't stop thinking about you. Tonight was incredible. Can't wait to see you again." The world around me blurred, and the weight of betrayal settled heavily on my chest. Tara's laughter from the kitchen faded, replaced by a deafening silence. I felt my blood run cold as I read the flirty banter, the evidence of her infidelity laid bare before me. I had to confront her, but fear and anger battled within me. I put the phone down, heart racing. What have I done to deserve this? I whispered to myself. Just then, Tara walked in, her eyes bright and carefree. "Hey, love. What's for dinner?" She beamed, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. Just some pasta," I managed to reply, my voice strained. I felt the bitterness rising, the urge to lash out bubbling beneath the surface. "Did you have a good day at work?" "Yeah, it was pretty busy," she said, pouring herself a glass of wine. "I think I nailed the presentation." She took a sip, her smile still intact, and for a moment, I wished I could believe her, wished I could see the woman I married instead of the stranger who had betrayed me. "You've been busy a lot lately," I said, my tone sharper than intended. "Always working late." "I've noticed." Tara raised an eyebrow, setting her glass down. "Ethan, I'm just trying to get ahead in my career. You know that. Is this about the project again, or maybe it's about your mysterious phone conversations?" I shot back, unable to contain the hurt and anger bubbling up inside me. "Who the hell is Jake?" Her expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "This is ridiculous." "Ridiculous? You think it's ridiculous?" I took a step closer, my heart pounding. "You think it's okay to flirt with some guy while I'm here pretending everything is fine? What are you accusing me of?" Tara said, her voice rising. "I can't believe you would even suggest that." "Believe it. I saw the messages, Tara." "I know everything," I said, my voice a low growl. The atmosphere crackled with tension, the air thick with unspoken words and hurt. For a moment, she stood there, frozen, her mouth opening and closing as if trying to find the right words. "You're making a huge mistake," she finally said, her tone wavering between anger and disbelief. "No, Tara, the mistake was believing we had a perfect life," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "This isn't just about you and Jake. This is about everything we built on a lie." As her face paled, I felt a bitter satisfaction. The perfect life I thought we had was a facade, and now it was crumbling around us. The illusion had fractured, leaving behind jagged pieces of betrayal and broken trust. I was done being the fool in our twisted fairy tale. "Ethan, please, just give me a chance to explain, she pleaded, her voice softening. Explain what? I challenged, anger igniting within me again. How you've been lying to me. How you've been planning your future with him. I didn't mean for it to happen, she exclaimed, her voice breaking. It just happened, just like that. I scoffed. You think that makes it better? I deserve better than your excuses. As the reality of our shattered marriage hung between us, I felt something shift within me, a determination fueled by hurt. I was no longer just a man in love, I was a man betrayed. I needed answers, and I needed to take control. The perfect life was gone, but the fight had just begun. The days that followed the confrontation were a blur of anger and confusion. Each time I looked at Tara, the weight of her betrayal crashed over me anew, and I found it increasingly difficult to mask my rage. We were trapped in a house that once felt like a sanctuary, but now it resembled a prison, with unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. Tara tried to reach out, offering apologies and explanations that felt hollow to me. I would sit across from her at the kitchen table, the space between us charged with tension. Ethan, she would begin, her voice trembling, I never meant for it to go this far. Can't we talk about this like adults? Talk. I would snap, slamming my hand on the table, causing her to flinch. You think we can just sit down and have a civilized conversation after everything? What is there to talk about? You've already chosen him. Please, don't say that, Tara would reply, tears brimming in her eyes. I love you. I made a mistake. I was lonely. I shot back, my voice laced with bitterness. What about the years we've built together? Did they mean nothing to you? With each argument, I felt the chasm between us deepen. It became clear that our marriage was hanging by a thread, and the longer I stayed in this toxic space, the more suffocated I felt. I needed to find out everything, and the only way to do that was to dig deeper into Tara's world. I became an unwitting detective, trailing her whenever she left the house. My heart raced with a mix of adrenaline and dread, but I was determined to uncover the full extent of her deception. One evening, I followed her as she slipped out for another supposed work meeting. It wasn't hard to track her. She parked her car at the corner cafe where I'd often seen her meet Jake. I waited in the shadows, my stomach churning as I watched her walk in, the familiar sway of her hips now a painful reminder of the intimacy we once shared. Inside, I peered through the window, watching her laugh at something Jake said. I felt a stab of anger and helplessness, my fists clenched tightly at my sides. I needed more evidence to confront her again, to show her that I wouldn't be a victim of her lies any longer. Days passed, and the more I observed, the clearer the picture became. I discovered their routine, coffee every Tuesday, late-night texts, and weekend escapades. It was infuriating, but also illuminating. I began to piece together the moments that I had overlooked, the signs that had been there all along. One night, I confronted her again, armed with new knowledge. She was pouring herself a glass of wine when I stepped into the living room. So, another meeting with Jake tonight? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Tara looked startled. What do you mean? You think I wouldn't notice? The way you check your phone every 5 minutes, the late nights. I moved closer, the anger radiating off me like heat. You're a terrible liar, Tara. Ethan, stop it, she said, her voice rising. You're being paranoid. I told you I'm trying to fix this. Fix what? I laughed bitterly. The fact that you've been lying to my face. You think a couple of apologies will erase the damage you've done? She took a step back, her expression shifting from defiance to fear. I can't change what happened, but I want to try. I love you, love. I spat. Love doesn't sneak around behind someone's back. Love doesn't betray the person who's given you everything. You've made your choice, and now it's time for me to make mine. As the argument escalated, I felt a rush of determination. I wasn't going to be her victim any longer. I would expose her lies and secure my future, even if it meant tearing down the remnants of our marriage. The next day, I followed her again. I waited outside the cafe, heart pounding, as I watched her walk in with Jake. I felt a surge of anger as I noticed the way he leaned close, whispering something that made her laugh, her eyes sparkling with a joy I hadn't seen in a long time. I snapped a few pictures from my phone, documenting their interaction. Each click of the camera felt like a step toward reclaiming my power. I needed tangible evidence to confront her one last time. This was not just about revenge, it was about securing my future. When I got home, I took a moment to breathe, collecting myself before she returned. I spread the photos out on the dining room table, each one a testament to her betrayal. The air was thick with tension as I waited for her to arrive. When Tara finally walked through the door, her face lit up momentarily at the sight of me. But that light dimmed quickly as she saw the photos scattered across the table. "What is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Proof," I said coldly, motioning for her to sit. "Proof that you've been lying to me all along. You think I'd just sit back and let you walk all over me? I deserve better than this." Tara's face paled as she looked at the images. "Ethan, Save it," I interrupted, my voice rising. "You've made your choices. Now it's my turn to make mine." As I gathered the evidence, the shattered pieces of our marriage lay before me, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the devastation. I was ready to confront the truth, to unmask the lies that had stolen my peace. The illusion of our perfect life was gone, but I was prepared to fight for my future, no matter the cost. The weight of betrayal hung heavily over me as I pieced together the tangled web of lies that Tara had spun. Each day felt like a relentless cycle of deception, and with every revelation, my determination to reclaim my life grew stronger. I was no longer a passive participant in our marriage, I had become an investigator in my own heartbreak, and the evidence I had collected was only the beginning. Tara tried to act normal, as if everything was just fine. She would come home from work, greet me with a forced smile, and prepare dinner as if I didn't know the truth. The pretense grated on my nerves, turning the simplest interactions into a chore. I could feel the strain of her facade, the tension wrapping around us like a noose, tightening with every false smile. One evening, I stood by the sink, washing the dishes while she chopped vegetables for our meal. The silence between us was suffocating, filled with unspoken accusations. As I scrubbed a stubborn pot, I turned to her, unable to hold back my anger any longer. "Tara, do you ever get tired of lying?" I asked, my voice low but firm. "What do you mean?" she replied, her tone defensive as she glanced up from her cutting board. "Every time you look at me, I can see the guilt in your eyes. How can you stand there pretending that everything is okay?" I wiped my hands on a towel, feeling the heat rising in my chest. "How can you keep up this charade?" "I'm trying to move forward, Ethan," she shot back, her voice rising. "Can't you see that? I'm trying to make things work between us." "Work?" I laughed bitterly. "You think we can just brush this under the rug? You've been with Jake. What am I supposed to do? Just forget that." Tara's face twisted in frustration. "I told you it was a mistake. I was confused, and I don't even know why I let it happen. I love you, not him." "Love? That's a nice word to throw around, but it doesn't mean anything when it's backed by betrayal." I turned away from her, my hands trembling. I had to stay calm, to keep my head clear. I needed to gather more evidence, to fully expose the depth of her deception. That night, I lay awake in bed, listening to Tara's soft breathing next to me. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of our shattered marriage pressing down on me. My mind raced with thoughts of her and Jake, what they did together, the promises they exchanged. It made me sick to think about it. As the days went by, I dove deeper into Tara's life, meticulously observing her routines. I started marking down her schedule, keeping track of her late nights and unexplained absences. One Friday evening, after she told me she had a work dinner, I decided to follow her again. I parked a few blocks away from the restaurant where I suspected she would meet Jake. My heart raced as I waited, watching couples walk by, laughing and holding hands. I felt like an outsider in my own life, a shadow lurking in the corners of my own marriage. After an hour of waiting, I saw Tara arrive, looking stunning in a red dress that hugged her curves. My gut twisted at the sight of her with him. Jake was there waiting for her, and as they embraced, I felt a surge of anger rush through me. The sight of their intimacy ignited a fire I couldn't contain. I snapped pictures from my car, documenting their every move. They sat together, sharing a bottle of wine, and the laughter floated through the air, sharp and taunting. I felt sick, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as I watched them exchange flirtatious glances. I was witnessing the destruction of my marriage unfold before my eyes, and the realization hit me: Tara was living a double life, one that didn't include me. A couple of hours later, I decided to confront them. I stepped into the restaurant, my heart pounding. As I approached their table, Tara looked up, her expression shifting from joy to horror as she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and dread. "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, my tone cold. "Having fun with your boyfriend while I sit at home waiting for you?" Jake looked between us, confusion written on his face. "Who the hell are you?" he asked, his bravado faltering under the weight of my fury. "I'm her husband," I said, feeling the power of the truth coursing through me. "And you're the one who's been ruining my life." Tara stood up, her face pale. "Ethan, please, let's talk about this outside." "Talk?" "There's nothing left to talk about," I said, my voice steady as I looked at her. "You've already made your choice. Just give me a minute," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "Of course, you didn't," I shot back, crossing my arms. "You never think about how your actions affect anyone but yourself." As I stood there, I realized I had to take control. The time for passive observation was over. "Jake, do yourself a favor and walk away. You don't want to be involved in this mess," I warned him, my gaze piercing. Tara grabbed my arm, her grip tight. "Ethan, please don't do this here. Can we just go home and talk?" I pulled my arm away, staring into her eyes. "Home? You mean the home you've been lying in with another man?" "No thanks. I'd rather be anywhere else." The tension in the air crackled as I stepped back, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. I had unmasked her deceit, exposing the truth in front of the man who had stolen her from me. But with that revelation came a sense of despair. I had to accept the reality of what was happening to my life. As I turned to leave, I caught one last glimpse of Tara, her eyes pleading and filled with regret. But I was done being the victim in this twisted game. I walked out of the restaurant, the weight of the world on my shoulders, but a newfound clarity pushing me forward. The illusion of our perfect life was shattered, and now I was determined to build a new future, one that was mine. The air felt thick with tension as I walked away from the restaurant, the cool night wrapping around me like a shroud. My heart pounded in my chest, fueled by adrenaline and a fierce determination. I had faced Tara, and though the confrontation had left me reeling, it also ignited a fire within me. The time for uncertainty and passive waiting was over. I was ready to take charge of my life. I drove aimlessly for a while, letting my thoughts swirl. My mind replayed the scene in the restaurant, Tara's stunned expression, the look of disbelief on Jake's face. I felt a rush of satisfaction knowing I had stood up for myself, yet the reality of losing Tara felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I needed a plan, a way to turn this painful situation into a new beginning. Later that night, I returned home to find the house eerily quiet. The smell of the dinner Tara had prepared still lingered in the air, a bittersweet reminder of the life we once had. I paced the living room, unsure of what to do next, until I heard the sound of the front door creaking open. Tara stepped inside, her face pale and drawn, the door clicking shut behind her. "Ethan," she began, her voice shaky as she took a step toward me, "we need to talk." "Talk?" I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. "After everything, you want to talk? What's there to say that hasn't already been said?" "Please, just listen," she implored, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I didn't want it to happen. I was confused and confused. That's your excuse. I interrupted, my anger flaring again. You think a moment of confusion justifies throwing away our entire marriage? You were with him, Tara. You chose him over me. I know I messed up. But it was never about you. I was going through a rough patch, and I didn't know how to handle it, she replied, frustration creeping into her voice. I still love you. I want to fix this, fix it. I scoffed. You can't just glue back together what you've shattered. You can't unring a bell. You made your bed, Tara, and now you have to lie in it. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought I saw genuine remorse flicker in her eyes. What do you want from me? I want to make amends. Can't we at least try? I repeated, feeling the bitterness rise again. What would trying even look like? You think I can just forget about your nights with him? The way you betrayed me, I didn't think you'd find out, she whispered, her voice cracking. I thought I could get my life back on track before it all fell apart. I never wanted to hurt you, yet you did, I said, my voice cold as ice. And now I'm done with the lies. It's time for us to face the truth. As I spoke, I felt a shift within me. I was tired of being angry and hurt. It was time to take action. I'm moving forward, Tara. I'm filing for divorce. Her expression shifted from anger to disbelief. What? You can't be serious, she exclaimed, stepping closer. We can work through this. I'll do anything, anything. I laughed bitterly. What's left to do? You've destroyed the trust we had, and I can't keep pretending that everything is okay. I need to protect myself. Ethan, please don't do this. We can go to couples therapy, we can. Therapy? I interrupted, incredulous. You think some sessions will magically fix everything? This isn't just a bump in the road. This is a wreck, Tara. I can't rebuild something that's been burned to the ground. She took a step back, visibly shaken. You're being drastic. We've been through so much together. Don't throw it all away because of one mistake. One mistake. I echoed, my voice rising. This isn't just one mistake. This is a series of choices you made to betray our vows. You don't get to define what I do with my life anymore. I'm taking control. As I spoke, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had finally found my voice, and it was no longer about pleading or begging for her affection. It was about standing firm in my own truth. Ethan, please, she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I can't imagine my life without you. I was lost, and I thought I could find myself with someone else. I realize now how wrong I was. Maybe you should have thought about that before you went down that path, I said, my heart hardening. I'm done being your safety net. I deserve better, and I intend to find it. With those words, I felt an unfamiliar sense of clarity wash over me. I was taking back my power, and while it hurt to walk away from the woman I once loved, I knew it was necessary for my healing. I had spent too long living in her shadow, accepting her betrayal as a part of my life. No more. Tara stood there, her face etched with regret and sorrow, but I felt nothing for her now except pity. You'll regret this, she said, her voice small. Regret what? I challenged, my heart racing. Regretting the fact that I refused to be a victim of your choices. I'm reclaiming my life, Tara, and that starts with leaving you behind. As I turned to walk away, I felt her eyes on me, filled with a mixture of anguish and disbelief. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever came next. I stepped out of the house, closing the door behind me, not just on her but on a chapter of my life that had been filled with betrayal and heartache. It was time to write a new story, one where I was the protagonist reclaiming my life, my happiness, and my future.